believe it, guys?
Bouncy.
Christmas.
Special.
Just
right now. Bouncy.
Christmas
Special.
isn't it?
Right now.
Woohoo! I am so happy about this information.
Ho, 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 ho.
Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone! For this holiday season, I'd like to shine a big spotlight on something I've actually talked about before. Back when I was doing smaller videos on clowns over on TikTok, I covered a clown named Wizzo who starred in his very own Christmas special. Now that I've got an editor to help me, and a platform and tools that allow me to really give these clowns a voice, I would really like to share Wizzo's story again. But this time, I hope it will be much better. So with that being said, grab some eggnog, apple cider, or even hot chocolate, and let's learn about the clown with the Christmas special, Wizzo. Frank Oliver Wiziarde was born in 1916 in Westmoreland, Kansas. Frank's father, Jack, was a trapeze artist who expanded his act to include his mother, Laura, nicknamed Lulu, Frank himself, and his younger brother. And in 1930, when Frank was around 14, his family would create the Wizard Novelty Circus. This circus had a traveling act that had Frank and his family performing at shopping centers, public events, county fairs, and even local stores. These performances would often have 14-year-old Frank performing as a clown and doing trapeze acts. Unfortunately, because it was during the height of the Great Depression, the Wizard Circus would only last 6 short years. However, the skills learned in his family's circus would go on to help him later in his life. This early exposure to performing helped Frank become a natural in the spotlight, and he would move to Hollywood with hopes of finding success in show business. Unfortunately, he never really broke through as a serious actor. He only had a few small roles in a few small films. Unfortunately, these films and the information about what exactly Frank acted in remains unnamed and undocumented. Although this exploration of Hollywood would be cut short because from 1942 to 1946, Frank would join the U.S. Army until he would return home to pursue performing once more. Once he was home, Frank would have success interviewing people on the street in what was known as man-on-the-street interviews. He did this as a radio announcer at KFEQ in St. Joseph, Missouri. With his growing popularity in radio, Frank would be able to get a job working for KMBC-TV in Kansas City in 1953. And Frank had a great idea. Thinking of his time with his family's traveling circus and the way being a clown was so well received to the children in the audience, Frank had the idea of bringing a children's clown to television. This idea would land Frank his own show, which would first air in 1954, beating Bozo by 2 whole years. And so, Wizzo the Clown was born. Wizzo's design would feature a large hat, black bushy eyebrows, and a red mouth, with the upper lip being left white, yet outlined with black and filled with black dots. He would wear a large white collar, a printed shirt that did not match his hat nor his pants, and his pants were always short high waters to accentuate his giant oversized feet that he had created himself. This design itself is actually a mix of 3 separate types of clowns: the white-faced clown, a goose clown, and even the hobo clown. Wizzo's show would go on to switch stations a few times from KCMO-TV in Kansas to WIBW in Topeka, but his character and show would still always remain Wizzo the Clown. On Wizzo's TV show, he created many props, much like his giant feet, but these props would fill the set, one of which was an animal named Hissy the Goose who would drop down on Wizzo and bump him in the head and fly away. Wizzo also had a suitcase that contained many different gags that he also created. Oftentimes, Wizzo would enter the set from behind a curtain and trip over his many numerous handmade props, but then react to it happily, singing a song that declared, "Who is always smiling and never sad? It's Wizzo."
Who's always smiling, never sad? It's Wizzo! Who makes the boys and girls so glad? Wizzo! He's a merry fellow with a big red shiny nose, dressed in crazy mixed up clothes from his head down to his toes. great big trunk of tricks and
Wizzo compiled many different ideas to help draw more children to view the show, one of which being his birthday club. He also made many shopping center appearances reminiscent of the circus acts he did with his family when he was young. Although many people today do not know who Wizzo is, at the time Wizzo was a giant celebrity in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. He advertised for a lot of products at the time, like Seal Test Milk, owned by the Breyers Company, and Wholesome Bread. He even took place in the White House Easter egg hunt, as many other reputable clowns have done. And that leads us back to Wizzo's Christmas special, directed in 1966 by none other than Wizzo himself. Wizzo wanted to give back to children and make them a fun and wholesome Christmas movie. The film follows Wizzo as he takes children to see Santa Claus in the North Pole on a magic carpet ride.
You know what? I think we ought to go to North Pole on muleback. I think that'd be a good way. How do you think we ought to go? Okay, how do you think we should go?
Magic carpet.
Magic carpet.
The children, who were trained dancers from a dance studio called the Johnny Miller Dance Studio, also do performances as circus animals in Wizzo Land. Unfortunately, Santa's Christmas Circus has not aged well, but there are a lot of different pieces to the puzzle as to why. The first piece would be that when viewing Santa's Christmas Circus, you are not the target audience. You have to remember when viewing this movie that this clown already had a die-hard children's fan base from 3 very specific states. These children were just happy to see Wizzo, loved Wizzo, and were familiar with him. This movie was just a giant gift from Wizzo to the children watching public TV. And you also have to remember that on top of putting together the script and the choreography and all of the different moving parts of this movie, the director was Wizzo himself, who was also responsible for all of his own gags. Combining this with the way that a lot of people view clowns today, which is that they are creepy or weird, unfortunately his Christmas special is not as beloved as it probably is by the children who got to witness it when it first came out. But I genuinely think that if you see this special through the eyes of someone who understands that this was a children's TV clown who was one of the very first TV clowns ever that put together all his own props and put together all these ideas on his own, including directing, you gain a special appreciation for how hard he really worked, especially during the late 50s and 60s. Not only did Wizzo's show start in 1954, it didn't end until the late 80s. Wizzo's last show was on May 20th, 1987, and he would pass away only 4 months after that in September of 1987 in Overland Park, Kansas. Actually, the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus would play at Kemper Arena the day that he died. Wizzo would continue to be loved even after he passed. He actually had a huge impact on his childhood fans. A former Kansas City mayor, H. Roe Bartle, once famously stated, "If kids could vote, Wizzo would be the mayor." The children who grew up with him, now older adults, still remember the Wizzo song. I think it says a lot about an entertainer, the way that they are remembered after they die, and Wizzo is still loved and held in high regard by all the children who watched him growing up. Many TV clowns have unfortunately been forgotten to time, especially with Bozo being so popular in that area and overshadowing them. However, it's people like you watching this video that help keep clowns like Wizzo alive that much longer. So for that, I thank you. The world is full of creative and hardworking people with bright and shining spirits, and just because they are no longer here with us doesn't mean that we shouldn't celebrate how genuinely wonderful they are. My Christmas wish this holiday season is that I can continue to bring you all more information and stories about clowns that people may have overlooked. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas!